Hey guys, welcome back to Total War Warhammer. This is Indie Pride from Milk and Cookies Total War, and I have a friendly little PSA for you all. So, I think we all knew that the Dwarfs were going to get buffed in the King and the Warlord DLC. We knew that that was going to happen simply because they were getting a bunch of new units and more variety for a faction that struggles sometimes in multiplayer was certainly not going to hurt them. I think this buff that they've received was one that a lot of us did not expect, and may not have even been intentional. In fact, it may be a bug. So to give you some background, the High King ability for Thorgrim Grudgebearer used to only activate when he was either wavering or routing. I'm not actually sure which because the tooltip for it was kind of terrible before. But it has been reworked now, along with Bretonia's or King Llewellyn Leoncoeur's beloved son of Bretonia buff, to become absolutely insane. So let's explain what the deal with this buff is now. So the High King ability now, when your leadership is above 50%, which is going to be almost all the time unless you're losing terribly, you get plus 8 melee attack, plus 8% charge bonus, plus 12% weapon damage, and immune to psychology for every single unit in your army. Yes, the effect range is 250 meters. That is effectively global or map wide. That is a incredibly massive AoE. So, you get plus 8 melee attack for every single unit in your army. When you take a unit like a Dwarf Warrior with great weapons or regular Dwarf Warrior, they start out with 22 melee attack and 20 melee attack. So you're giving them plus 8 there, right? He also has another ability called the Great Book of Grudges, which in a 45 meter radius, which will pretty much always hit the majority, if not the entirety of your army, also gives plus 8 melee attack. That's plus 16. Add a Runesmith on top of that, which you're always going to be bringing if you are playing as the Dwarfs, either Rune Lord or Runesmith. You really can't get away without bringing one or the other. You also get the Master Rune of Stromni, Redbeard, which in a 60 meter radius gives you plus 4 leadership, plus 8 melee attack. This is insane buff stacking. What you're getting is for a bunch of very cost-effective and cheap units for the Dwarfs, the Dwarf Warriors, and the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, you are getting plus 24 melee attack for every unit in your army. So you can imagine that's really strong. You are doubling their melee attack, you're doubling their damage output. Now, it's not just for the Dwarf Warriors and the lower tier stuff. You can imagine something like Norgrimling's Ironbreakers, very expensive unit, but they have almost 10,000 HP on ultra unit size, a little bit less on large unit size, of course, but the defensive capabilities of the dwarf units, especially like the Ironbreakers, who have charge defense, then you suddenly upgrade their melee attack, which is the only thing Ironbreakers struggle with, and suddenly they are hitting for 60 plus melee attack. That is insane. So, what I'm trying to say here, guys, is with the High King buff for Thorgrim Grudgebearer, Dwarfs are good. Just straight up. They will beat a lot of armies in 1v1 melee combat now. You don't even have to worry necessarily about cavalry. You get a Slayer unit in the back. You do the normal things that you would do to counter cavalry. Yes, Dwarfs do struggle a little bit with cavalry. They still have some of the same issues that they had before, but you're not guaranteed, but you have a huge leg up in the melee fight now when your entire army is getting plus 24 melee attack. There's no other faction in the game that can stack buffs in a similar manner. So, again, I don't think a lot of people were expecting the Dwarfs to be this strong, but I'm not kidding. When you stack all these buffs together, you are getting a very powerful melee force, which is a good thing for the Dwarfs. We'll see if it has an effect on the metagame in multiplayer. I'm thinking that it might. We might get to see the Dwarfs more. It may even be a bug. It may be something where CA was just like, hey, we want to give the Dwarfs a buff, but perhaps they meant to say leadership is, that it gets disabled if leadership is higher than 50%. So if Thorgrim is having some morale problems, then it kicks in. I don't know. This might be too strong, but it's, either way, we're going to be seeing it here for a while because we're not going to be getting a new patch for another month at least, I would think. And I don't think they're going to hotfix this either. Now, the other thing for the Dwarfs that's going to make them pretty strong, take a look at Clan Angrund for a second, is the Ethereal units, which cause terror, which in and of itself is pretty amazing, and the Gob Lobber. So let's find that here. The Gob Lobber has a minus 16% or minus 16 leadership debuff called Discouraged that lasts for 10 seconds. When you stack that with a unit that causes terror and you're winning melee combat, you will shatter armies, or at least break them, almost instantly sometimes. It is a very powerful combination. I've already used it a couple times in multiplayer. You'll probably see some replays of it very soon. The Ethereal units for Clan Angrund are super, super good. Causing terror in and of itself is an amazing ability. It will cause units to break, and in a game where you can easily dispatch running units, causing terror and then dealing with the rest of their army is a super powerful thing. Not only that, you can bring potions, and you guys know that Ethereal units in general have a much lower HP pool than regular heroes or regular units, and that means that potions that heal help them out much more than other units. So, for example, King Lun Ironhammer has 2500 HP. You can get him down to about 200 HP, pop the Potion of Toughness. He is unbreakable as well, and he's going to be literally back to full HP, which would not work for another unit, say a Gorbel or something like that. So, Ethereal units with their low HP pool get a ton of benefits out of a Potion of Toughness, and they have an 80% physical resistance or damage mitigation. So I've already seen King Lun run into melee and get hammered on by 2 Arachnarok spiders and survive for minutes on end. Add Unbreakable on top of that, you have a very, very strong hero unit, and you'll be seeing them a lot in multiplayer as well. So I think this combination for the Dwarfs is also very powerful. I think you'll be seeing it a lot, probably seeing it in competitive multiplayer as well. Last thing I want to mention before I go, King Lewin Leoncoeur has this ability called the Beloved Son of Bretonnia. It is almost the exact same thing as High King Thorgrim Grudgebearer's High King ability, but in this case it is map wide, which effectively is the exact same thing as the 250 meters, because you're not going to have a unit outside that 250 meters pretty much ever as the Dwarf. So again, it's only disabled if leadership is lower than 50%, but when you're getting a bunch of really cost-effective, cheap units like Spearmen-at-Arms with shields or Men-at-Arms polearms, you're doubling, or no, in this case, you're just giving them +8 melee attack. So it's not as strong as the buffs you're getting for the Dwarfs, because you can stack up 3 +8 melee attacks. In this case, it's only 1 +8 melee attack buff, but it's still really strong. It's a high percentage of their base attack value of 26 and 24 respectively. So you can't ever not field these buffs, I think. Like, you're never going to want to skip this. It was decent before anyway, but you're always going to want to bring this now, because let's see how much gold it is. Yeah, 62 gold. I think it's the same for High King ability, maybe 65, something like that. It's just so cost effective to field. It's such a big buff that I think it's going to help both factions a lot in multiplayer. Buff stacking for the Dwarfs is a real thing now. Hope this helps you out. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will be bringing you some more content on multiplayer very soon.